And we are recording. Thanks, Kat. We're going to start with just, well, actually, hold on. Let me bring up my screen here with all of you, my PowerPoint. Okay, so again, as Kathy said, my name is Amy Mazer. I am a trainer with Literacy New York, and I also, in my full-time role, am the Director of Operations for Literacy Buffalo Niagara. We provide services in Erie and Niagara counties on the western part of the state. So it's nice to see all of you here today. I am going to just ask us to do some quick introductions, but because we have such a large group, we are going to ask you to do this with your chat. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little thought bubble and the word chat. If you're not familiar with this feature, you can click on there and it will open up a chat box for you. And please type in the chat box what you see on the screen, which is your name, the agency that you are associated with, and what your role is in that agency, whether you're a staff or a volunteer tutor.
Oh.
Thank you all for putting your information in there, just so we can see who we have with us. Based on the registrations that we had early on, it seemed to have quite a variety of folks coming to this presentation. Some were brand new as volunteer tutors, some were brand new as staff members, others were veteran tutors, and other were veteran staff members. So it's nice to have such a diverse group here today for this, and I'm looking forward to sharing information a little bit more specifically about the I2O reading and language libraries for you today, so that you can become more comfortable with using them and being able to use them as a tutor, or to be able to help your tutors and staff use them themselves. So again, thank you all for putting your information. You can certainly scroll through yourselves to see who is represented in the group this afternoon, rather. Sorry, not morning anymore. And we'll move on just from there. So I'd like to start with a poll, and Kathy is helping with the poll. We're curious to know how familiar you are at this stage with the I2O reading and language libraries. We know that some of you have some experience with it while others have none. So we'd like you to complete this poll as a way to just gather those thoughts on if you have never heard of these reading and language libraries, or if you've heard of them but never gone through to really explore them. Perhaps you've been in the libraries but never used the materials, or you might use them all the time and know quite a bit and are just here to have more information about them. So if you wouldn't mind completing that first poll. Okay, so it looks like we have all the answers or responses coming in. All right. It's nice because it tells you how many people have responded, so it works really easily. Okay. So we have, just based on the responses that are in right now, we have about 19% of you who've never heard about the reading and language libraries. About 35% of you have heard but never really gone in to explore them. 26% have been in the libraries but have not used the materials. And then 19%, so equal to the lowest of this also, that you use the libraries already. So we have 19% of you that use them and 19% of you that have never heard of them. So it's kind of split right down the middle there. Okay, so, oh, and I didn't realize, Kathy, that it actually shares your results. So there you go. You can see those percentages all listed out for you. I don't think I've ever had the ability to use a poll before, so in a Zoom. So thank you, Kathy, for bringing that to us today. Okay, so can everyone see the PowerPoint? Is that still showing? Okay, thank you. Again, it's so hard to know when you're looking at just the one screen that you have in front of you when you're doing these online virtual trainings. Okay, so just a little bit I want to share with you a little background about the I2O platform and just how all of this came into existence. I have been working in my role at my agency for 18 years now. I just had my 18-year anniversary in October. And a few years into my job, I happened to start right along at the same time as Kathy, when Kathy started at Literacy New York as a program director. And a couple years in, we were really looking to revamp our tutor training, and Literacy New York kind of came to a bunch of us, a few of the programs in the area or in the state rather, and said, we're really looking to create a new tutor training process, as well as some more standardized procedures for everything from taking students into the program to transitioning through tutoring and then exiting them from the program. So we were really looking at getting some new training done. So when Kathy approached us about working on this project of redeveloping the training process as well as the student intake process, I was eager to do so. So we started by redoing all of the face-to-face workshops that we offered at the time, which had been the way that training was done for a long time. We had a number of workshops that we developed, and I think, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is about 15 years ago now, when we started working on
Yeah, I
developing.
think it has been about 15 years. Yep.
Yeah, so we started working on creating workshops to build a tutor training process. So we developed an orientation workshop, English language learning workshops, basic literacy learning workshops, and a final workshop called Successful Tutoring. As we rolled those out to the groups across the state, they were all well received, and we really honed in on the best way to train tutors in a face-to-face setting. But of course, times began changing. And one thing that I saw when working with a smaller literacy affiliate in Chautauqua County, which is just south of Erie County in Western New York, I realized that I had a benefit in a larger program like ours, where we could run monthly training opportunities for volunteers and fill a room every month, because we have a large population in the city of Buffalo and in the Niagara Falls and Lockport areas. So we're able to cultivate those groups on a monthly basis. Smaller programs, however, did not have that ability. So when I was operating the program in Chautauqua County, I would get one or two people interested in becoming a tutor, but we had to wait until we had a sizable group to run those in-person workshops, because they were so contingent on doing activities with one another and having the engagement with a group of people. So the idea came to begin converting those face-to-face workshops to an online platform. And Kathy knows, at first I was a little resistant to it personally, frankly, just because I love training. And I also like to get a sense of understanding from the tutors in my program as they would go through the workshops. I had the ability to explain things and answer questions specific to our agency, and I was afraid I was going to lose that. So I wasn't on board right at first. I did help with creating and developing the online program, but it took me about a year to, I think, roll it out more fully to our volunteer tutors. I couldn't be more happy that I did that, of course, because it has freed up some other time that allows me to do things like this, additional training for those volunteers in our program. But when we did start developing, when Literacy New York really began investing in the online platform, it started by really converting the face-to-face workshops into online workshops. And we also developed an in-person component that worked to bookend those online training courses. So we had an orientation that can be done in person, as well as a session called Getting Started that could be done in person after one would complete their online coursework. Now, the online training platform Intake to Outcomes is used to train just about all of the volunteer tutors in New York State. It's been used to train thousands of volunteers at this point, and it's also being used in other states to train tutors in those states that don't have platforms like this established. So I think there's a few states, including Texas, who are using this to train their staff and volunteers, which is a nice way to really expand the reach that Literacy New York has with this particular online training. The benefits of it have been that, programs can train tutors on demand, and again, not wait for those large groups to go through. There's flexibility for tutors to take multiple types of training before they would go to either English language or basic literacy learning in person, and would have to take both of those series in order to be able to be trained in both English and reading. Now we have more flexibility with training volunteers where they have the ability to take multiple courses on this platform. And then for me, I feel that by far the largest benefit that the online program has brought to my program is the ability for tutors to go back into the system at any given time, not just to review the material, but also access any materials, downloads, things like that they can use in the future. And that is one thing that I strongly encourage our tutors to do is after their initial training is complete and they've been tutoring a little bit, couple of months maybe, go back to those original courses, review them, and you will learn a whole lot more that second time around once you have a student to work with. So that's a little bit of kind of how all of this came together. And the reading and language libraries are one of the newer additions to the online platform. So just taking us to the next slide, we started off with the basics, which was reading basics and language basics and math basics. There was more added as time went on, such as the citizenship coach and numeracy and reading skills and concepts. There was a round of updates done to those original courses, which is why you see the reading, language, and math basics are set at a 2.0 because all three of those are in their second version with updates. And we have ongoing updates. So the newer courses on the list include the language and reading libraries, but also the language skills and concepts course, which was added not that long ago. That course is specific to teaching reading to English language learners. So if you'd like any information on the additional courses, of course, feel free to contact Kathy or anyone at Literacy New York, as I'm sure they'd be able to give you more information about those courses and being able to push them out to people who may find them useful. So more specifically getting into the language and reading libraries. So I don't want to get too into the details, but the developers that Kathy and Literacy New York began working with had a product called Thinknology that they were using for teaching reading to adults. And one of the benefits of their program was they had this library of curriculum and resources. And what happened was Literacy New York ended up purchasing the Thinknology library to be able to import it essentially into the online training, the Intake to Outcomes training platform. The purpose of this was to be able to provide volunteer tutors with some type of curriculum that they could use with their students so that they're not just taking the tutor training, but then they're also handed a potential curriculum they could use for their actual tutoring sessions. So that's why we're here today, is to help all of you understand and be able to use these reading and language libraries for the capabilities that they were brought into the picture for. The reading library has about 117 articles that are, as it says on the screen, that are with embedded reading activities, so that there's actual, not just reading, but actually activities that follow. To access these, and I'm going to show you all of this today in just a few moments. I'll do a full demonstration for you. But to access this, it's the same login information that you use to access your online training. So it's the same email and password that you all set when you created your account originally. You also get free access to this. So I'll show you on the screen. It does say that it costs about $100 a year, but as a volunteer or staff member with the Literacy New York group, this is something that is made available to you at no cost.
And Amy, I'm going to interrupt here because there was a question that came in with the registration. Students can also have accounts in the libraries, and they're free for the students. We do it the same way where we have coupon codes. So we maybe have had one or two, we haven't had very many, but Kitty and I did come up with a process a while ago to help students have access so that they could go in the libraries on their own and do some of the work and, do the questions and all that kind of thing. So if you're interested in having a student have access, just contact Kitty or me. And again, there's no charge. Anyone who's supported with state education dollars, which all your programs are, there's no charge for any access.
Thank you, Kathy. So each of the reading passages in the library comes complete with a teaching guide, which is a full-on lesson plan that walks you through how to use that lesson with a student sitting side by side them. The content is 100% written for adult learners, and that's something that I struggle with quite a bit in my program, and my program manager does, of finding additional reading material for adults at a first, second, third, and above that. It's just difficult because most of the materials out there are written for children. So finding things with relevant topics to adults, it has always been a challenge for us. So that's one thing that this fills a gap for the online libraries. They're also written at a variety of levels. So I'll share with you in a few moments that you'll see reading passages for different reading levels. And that was done with the intention of being able to be used for multiple students. There's also, you'll see in the differences of these teaching guides, they focus on different skills depending on the level. So those lower level learners, or those lower level lesson plans and teaching guides, really do focus on more basic vocabulary development, where the more intermediate advanced levels get into more of the comprehension skills and kind of some of the higher level thinking aspects of reading instruction. So that is the reading library. And the language library functions in a very similar way. This was the second part to be created because we wanted to make sure that there was a separate library for English language learners, knowing that a lot of the instruction is focusing on teaching listening and speaking in English and not as focused on developing reading comprehension. So the language library was created just I guess it's almost 2 years ago now that we're almost to 2024, but was started in January 2022. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a colleague from our network was the one who was working on all of the articles that are embedded into this platform. And the English activities do focus with, or have reading passages associated with them, but do push the tutor into more areas of discussion and conversational English with the respect to what's read in those articles. So that's one of the bridges we were trying to make with working with that population to improve those listening and speaking conversational English skills that we're focusing on. And again, just like the reading library, there's a teaching guide that comes with every lesson. They are written all for adult learners, and they're very specific to things that our English language learners experience in their day-to-day life here in the United States. And it's, again, developed for a variety of levels. So not just the lower level, but more intermediate and advanced students as well. So at this point, I think I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to start our demonstration portion where I can show you a little bit about the library and what it looks like and how you can get into it and access it and all of that. So bear with me for just a moment while I navigate the complicated Zoom share screen feature. And I just need to bring up, there it is. Okay. Do you see the intake to outcomes online tutor training? Perfect. Okay, so the reading libraries, I'm just trying to get rid of all of your faces so I can see my screen better here. The library, so as you all should know or have seen before in the work that you've done so far with the I2O system, all of the courses appear on your home screen. The courses that you have access to will say something like this. So mine shows that I'm 79% through the Reading Basics course. I assure you I've completed it many times, but that just shows where I've jumped around to show people different things. And as you scroll down, you can see all of the different courses that are there. And here is the reading library and curriculum. Just past that is the language library in curriculum. So I'm just going to start off with the reading library first. And when you jump into the reading library, you'll notice on the left-hand side, it tells you table of contents, which is the screen that we're at right here. And the table of contents, excuse me 1 second, I just have to, again, move your faces to the top of my screen somehow here. There we go. The table of contents has a listing. These are things for you as the tutor to look at because this is the screen that takes you directly to the teaching guides in the system. You'll notice there's also this other tab here that says articles and stories. If you click on that, it'll take you to all of the different articles and stories that are in the table of contents. By clicking here, it's going to take you to what you use with the student. But for you to get your teaching guide, you're going to start with the table of contents first. So as you scroll down, you'll notice that everything has a view next to it on the right-hand side. And that is how you get into the teaching guides. So the one I'm going to look at today for the purpose of demonstration is credit cards and you. So I'm going to click on view. And then it takes us directly to the teaching guide. I'm going to give you a moment and I'm going to send this in a link to you in just a minute, but I first wanted to show you how to get to this point. As you scroll down on the screen, you'll notice there's a download link. If you click to download this, it comes up in your downloads. You double click that. And does everyone see the teaching guide, credit cards, and you? Okay. I'm just making sure that it's going and showing you the right things. So that's how you get the teaching guide for this particular reading passage. Now, before we go any further, I do want to give you a few minutes to be able to review this lesson plan on your own. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting a link into the chat. If you click on this link, it should open up a separate copy for you so you can view this and navigate the screen going up and down on your own. So I'm going to ask for just a few moments, if you click on that link that was just placed in the chat box.
And then to get back to us, to find us again, find the Zoom icon on your screen. If you click the Zoom icon on your screen, it'll bring you back here where we can see you. So if you click on the link that Amy's provided, you can take a look at the guides. And then when you're done, just come on back into the main training by clicking that Zoom link. It presents in different places on different machines. So I don't have but you'll see the Zoom link, the blue Zoom link, and just click on that and it'll bring you right back here.
So I'm just going to be quiet for a few minutes. So if you don't hear any talking, that's just because it's purposeful. I want you to just have a few moments to review these 3 pages of this before we move forward. I think it just gives you time to kind of take it all in and then have questions, ask questions if needed when we get down the road.
И завтра сделать, потому что он сказал, что завтра вечером ожидается дождь.
Okay, so if you didn't have enough time to fully get through everything, we are going to go through it. But I am curious to know, what do you notice about the teaching guides in just the basic construction of them or the activities that are mentioned? What are the things that you might notice? And if you're willing to share, it's probably best to do the chat, Kathy.
Yeah, or they can click on mute in the
Okay.
little lower corner and then mute back up.
Yes, if you're comfortable sharing verbally, then just unmute yourself and share. Otherwise, put it in the chat. But we're curious, what do you notice about the teaching guide?
Well, I
Any-
can share.
Oh, thank you.
It's Carmela Osborne, really Aggie. Anyways, I noticed that it's very step by step.
Mhm.
So I think that's really good. So you won't forget like how to break it down. So it's
Right.
easy. So it's easy for your learner. Like doing the vocabulary first and then the repeated reading. I think it's very good so you can, figure out where to start.
Mhm. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Carmela.
Could I share too, even
Sure.
though I'm not a tutor?
That's okay,
Um,
Barbara.
Okay, thank you. I also think it follows the I do, we do, you do explicit learning. That's
Yes.
pretty obvious.
So
Yeah.
glad you saw that. That's very
Yeah.
intentional.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I've used that approach. I didn't call it explicit tutoring.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've used that approach for 50 years. So,
Yeah.
all right,
It's
I'll be quiet.
effective. It's
I'll be
effective.
quiet.
Mhm.
No, Barbara, you're more than welcome to add comments. No worries.
And I did see Jane said the correct answers are in bold.
Yes.
So that's the nice thing. When I was teaching, sometimes you think you can wing it. You'll just go through the questions and but sometimes you'll get a brain freeze and not know what the correct answer is. So to have them all here for you is really definitely helpful. Detailed, easy to follow. And then Thomas Beatty talks about the need for a vocabulary notebook. We think that's a wonderful thing for every student to have. And Tony, as far as the you can print these, they're downloadable and printable. These and if I were tutoring, I would probably print a copy for myself. We really hope that you use the libraries as they were designed on a screen if possible. We would love to have you sitting if you have access to a computer or a tablet. They present very nicely on a tablet, and a lot of us do have tablets. Amy, I think, is going to talk about some ways if you don't have the ability to be on a screen of other ways to use them. But I would definitely print this. And then we really hope that that you would just treat this like a book and bring your tablet. I mean, like I read the newspaper every day on my tablet. I don't get the paper anymore. That you would bring this along with you for your tutoring sessions if possible as well. But Amy's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for those of you that shared some of your thoughts on what you noticed about the teaching guides. So since we are here,
Let me go ahead and answer Jean. Jean, we really like to be able to know that we can make our updates we can make updates with an online modality. If we have changes, if we have more materials, if we have things that we notice, we get typos or those kinds of things. So having it online has been a real plus with that. We also believe that your students really need to learn how to use screens and how to if they're going to take the GED, it's on a computer. So the more they can be introduced to digital literacy, the better we think it is for them. So that we really do, we designed it so that it could be shared and used with your screens, really hoping to build on the digital literacy skills of your learners, and also so that we can make sure everything is up to date, correct, all that kind of thing. It makes it a lot easier than reprinting all of the paper.
absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to walk us through the lesson plan or the teaching guide, lesson plan, whatever you prefer to call it. And they all are very, very similar in nature. So we're not going to go through every single lesson plan today, but just showing you kind of the basic components, because the intention was to have them be identical as you move forward. And what changes are the stories and the content, but many of the activities, then the structure of these teaching guides do remain the same. So again, I just brought this up as a PDF in a different platform because it's just a little easier to see than what I was showing you on the internet screen. So just to make it as clear as possible, I'll switch back to that screen in just a moment. But you'll notice the before reading activity. So again, it really lays out for you what to even say to the student when you sit down with them. One thing I know with my tutors that I've trained over the years is that's always a big hesitation. And I think, Carmela, your comment of having it very step-by-step is exactly the reason that we wanted it this way. We wanted our volunteers to just have a very clear roadmap of what to do and not having to be figuring it out. I do feel that once a tutor becomes more practiced with this process, they're more comfortable with it and are able to do it more automatically. But as a new tutor is starting out, having these very specific steps are so helpful to really not just show how to develop a lesson plan, but also how to develop future lesson plans. So the before reading activity is really just kind of getting the ball rolling and activating the prior knowledge on the student's part. Then we go into the before reading vocabulary. So every single lesson or teaching guide that you'll see on this platform has before reading vocabulary. In some cases, you'll notice it tells you exactly how to teach the words and their definitions. Of course, if you wanted to add on creating a flashcard after doing this, that is completely acceptable and if not encouraged. So there's ways to add on to these activities as well to just make more of the session. But you'll notice that, and as you pointed out, that the choices for each of the questions are underneath. And let's see, then we get to during reading. So after the before reading, we want to talk about what are we going to do while we actually read, and it recommends using the repeated reading strategy, which is something that we use in the online training, which is typically called echo reading, but it's the same idea. You read something and then the student echoes or repeats what you said. They should have the text that they're also following along, but that use is to really develop fluency for the student and give them an opportunity to hear how it's supposed to sound and then practice them reading it themselves. There are after reading comprehension questions with the answers, of course, as well. And then some after reading discussion and homework. Notice that the homework will, in some cases, direct the learner to going onto this portal. So as Kathy mentioned a few minutes ago, there is the option of creating a student account so they could go on their own and practice the reading activities themselves. So that's what the homework is alluding to at the bottom here. If you don't have that, of course, you could supplement something else for homework and perhaps adjust for that accordingly. So that's just the basic lesson plan format. I'm going to now switch to, there we go. I'm just going to switch back to our online training screen where we left off to now take you through the next stage, which is after you bring up your teaching guide here, how you get to the actual course, because that's what we're really here for, is to see what do we actually do with this now. So as we go to here, you'll notice this is a live link. All you do is click there, and it's going to open up to the actual coursework. So one thing you'll notice is the screens look exactly the same as the online tutor training that you've all taken part in. That was done, number one, because it's in the same platform, but also number two, we wanted it familiar to the volunteers and the tutors that we work with. So you already are aware of the clicking components and how the navigation works of the system. So it should look very familiar. You'll notice the complete and continue button at the top right corner. So the teaching guide tells you to first, in the before reading activity box, it tells you to first discuss this picture with your student. Ask them, what is the picture about? This is an opportunity to just have a conversation to kind of open up your student's mind about what are we going to be focusing our time on today. And this could lead to some very rich conversation depending on the student that you're working with and their experience of using a credit card or credit in the past.
Amy, I'm going to chime in too. The assessment that the English language learners take, the Best Plus, is picture-based. So this gives them another opportunity to look at a picture, talk about a picture, have a conversation about a picture. So again, I think using the pictures is a really important part of it, especially for our English language learners.
Absolutely. So after we do the before reading where we discussed, we're going to click complete and continue at the top right. They also do have a secondary button down here. I have just personally always gone to the top right. Then it brings up our vocabulary words. So again, the teaching guide spells all of this out where it tells you you're going to the vocabulary screen. Now you're going to teach your learner new vocabulary following these steps. And it tells you exactly step by step how to teach these words to your learner. Again, if you wanted to add something to this, I think the easiest thing and the thing that makes it most sense is creating a flashcard where the student can write the word on one side and perhaps the definition on the other side. So that's just an extension activity that could be brought into this particular session here. Then after we review vocabulary, we have an opportunity to practice that vocabulary. This is something I tell my volunteers often. It's one thing to teach the word and how to recognize it, how to use it. It's a second opportunity to practice using that word in context in a number of ways.
And Aim, I'm gonna chime in here. If you are sharing a screen with your learner, I would have them go ahead and click, do the clicking. It's navigation, digital literacy skills. These are things that they're going to have to be learning eventually, and this is just a chance for your learner to get some time on a screen.
Yeah. So again, just as it functioned in the online training, Sam only pays bills each month. He is a credit risk. We check our answer and it tells us that we're correct. Then we click continue and it takes us to question 2. If we go up here and click complete and continue, it actually skips all the other questions. So you have to click that continue button just underneath the responses after you check your answer. So again, just for the purpose, the blank is the least you can pay on the credit card. So that would be minimum. Just going to go through it here for you to show you. I'm going to get one wrong so that I can share Blender what it looks like at the end. So I got 4 out of 5 correct. I can retake the quiz. This is not graded in any way, just as the online training is not. It's more just for the own comprehension of the student. So if you feel that you want to go back with the student and retake some of those, you're more than welcome to do so. Next, you go to complete and continue, and it's going to take us to the actual reading passage. So we've already done all this work. Now we're to the actual reading passage. And as the teaching guide directs us, we go to the repeated reading strategy. It tells us directly to read the first paragraph and then have the student repeat the first paragraph. Then read the second paragraph and have the student repeat the second paragraph. So these are small paragraphs, as you can see, just a few sentences for each of them. But keep in mind, this falls in the category of reading levels 1 to 2. So it's purposeful that it's a lower level reading passage. There's short sentences and even some bulleted points here as well to make it a little bit easier to digest. After we go through using the repeated reading strategy is when we're going to click and go complete and continue, and we get to our 3 comprehension questions. Again, these are all written out for you in the teaching guide, but we're going to go through the same process. And as Kathy suggested, I couldn't agree more. Having the student do the clicking is a very simple way to make them more comfortable with using the computer if that is an area that they are not comfortable with. You can certainly help them with that. And that is something that's going to go a long way because it's going to help them with anything they do online, not just this coursework with you. So again, we go through, I sadly only got 33% correct, but I can go back and retake that quiz if I'd like to get a better score. I suppose the only way to really get a good score is to get all 3 correct percentage-wise, because 66 isn't much better than 33. And then there are the after reading activities and discussion that are in the teaching guide. Now, one thing you'll notice at the end of each of the stories in the library, each of the collections here, is there's always an audio recording. So
And I think that's just on the lower level ones, Aim. I don't think it's on the higher levels. Yeah.
I didn't look up at the higher ones as much specifically, but that's an additional benefit for your student. Again, if they are using this independently, or if you want them to just listen to the story again without you reading it, then this is an option for them to be able to do that. So that is then when we go to complete and continue, and it takes us back to the home page. Now, if we go back to our table of contents. Oh, sorry, we have to go to this table of contents. There we go. Now we go back and it does take us back to the language library. And here we go back to all of the other reading guides. So a second one just to share with you, to show you a little bit of the next level was the lottery winners. And again, they all look the same. So here we have this particular lesson plan teaching guide. This one also uses echo reading and is focusing on the main idea and details of a story. So in this one, again, it gives us the before reading activity. It gives us the before reading preview. This particular one is a little bit lengthier of a story. It has the vocabulary written out again for you, including the definitions. This level does not have a vocabulary quiz. So it has you do the primary work with the vocabulary between you and the student, not with those questions that you answer on the screen. Then we have that during reading fluency. We have after reading comprehension. In this case, it uses a main idea graphic organizer as a way to jot down the information to flesh out what the main idea of each paragraph is. And as you go through, we have the after reading discussion and independent study, which just explains that the student would take another story to work on their own.
And
So
Amy, I'm going to interject as well. Some of these session guides might last more than one tutoring session.
Yep.
There's a lot, there could be more activities than you would finish in your couple of hours, especially if you have other things that you're working on like math and those kinds of things. So there's no expectation that you roll through this in one session. So it really is designed for to be convenient for you as tutors to use that makes sense, the way it makes sense for you and your learner.
Absolutely. So again, just as a reminder, once we're here at the teaching guide, we can click right onto that live hyperlink, and it's going to take us to the reading passage here. So again, the difference of this particular level being a 3rd and 4th grade level is you don't have all of the pre-work with the vocabulary. That's done, again, with you and the student sitting side by side with the words that they've identified from these reading passages. And you'll notice that this is quite a bit lengthier. There's a lot more text here. There is still a picture, but as we go through, it's more text heavy. It's still a reasonable reading level. If you look at the size of the sentences, the number of words and the length of the words that are in those sentences, it's still at a 3rd, 4th grade level, but there's more text there. So we're focusing more on the comprehension of the overall piece being the main idea and details of these paragraphs here. Again, halfway through the reading passage, we get our comprehension check, which is purposefully done not to disrupt the student in their thinking and processing, but to check their understanding of the first half of what they read. Because if they're not fully understanding that, it's going to make the second part even a little more challenging for them to be able to read and understand. Then we're to the complete and continue to go through the rest of the passage. And there are 6 final questions at the end here to work on the comprehension of that part 2 of the reading passage. So I think that's what I wanted to share with you with respect to the reading library. And just to finish us through here, so it'll say we're 100% done. Last one, and sadly, I only got 2 out of 6 again. And then it takes us back to the beginning. So that's the way that the reading library looks. And just for showing you both sides of this, I do want to share what the language library looks like, just so you see that it's very, very similar.
And I'm going to say something again. Amy, she told me to interrupt her whenever.
Please, I keep saying when you take your mute off.
The reading library, they can be, both of them could be used for either student. But with the language library, we found that the students really liked stories written from first person point of view. So all of the articles in the language library are from that perspective. We worked with a very knowledgeable content specialist on all of this. So You'll notice that there is a little bit of difference in the point of view. This is really kind of first person, but you can use, if there's something that your student's interested in the reading library and they're an English language learner, it doesn't matter. You can use both libraries. And if some of you've taken both trainings, the language basics and reading basics, you'll see there's a lot of similarities between them as far as strategies and that kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. So again, just to click through one of them, I'm going to look at I Came to America to Work. And as Kathy said, these were all written specifically with the intention of people who are coming to the United States and have these experiences for the relatability factor. So again, you'll see the teaching guide looks the exact same as the previous two we looked at. Here, again, it begins with the photo cue, again, to build that basic background knowledge and conversation. It starts off with a language experience approach, activity with the student, asking their own experiences coming to the United States. It goes through some relevant vocabulary and then actually has you creating flashcards as an activity with the student. It does give you some instruction on how you can create those flashcards and have the word on the front with then a number of different things on the back. These are customizable based on your student and kind of what type of information you think is most helpful for them. We focus on pronunciation here as well. That is one of the distinct differences from the reading library. You won't see that section, but because again, this is more intended for English language learners, instruction and pronunciation is a portion of that. I appreciate they put the tip in here of providing guidance on the mouth position, because that is truly where that pronunciation is impacted. We have some, again, before reading vocabulary exercises like we saw on the first reading passage that we looked at. And as we scroll down, you see during reading, vocabulary building and question posing, as well as checking for synonyms. And then the fluency strategy, again, is using echo reading. While we are working through it, it gives us a checkpoint with some questions embedded in so that we can check understanding. And then there's, of course, the after reading discussion and independent study, which if you're using flashcards, that's a nice, easy one to have as an extension activity or to take home for extra practice is taking those flashcards home and working with them on the student's end. So just to take us to the course itself and share this components of what it looks like on the student side. So again, here you see we have our introduction with our picture. Sorry, my computer's going a little slow now. Now we have the vocabulary that's going to be focused on that you're working on based on the teaching guide to teach the student and create those flashcards. Here we have those vocabulary check questions to, again, work on the vocabulary and context after you've taught those words or reviewed them if they already know them. Please don't think that I really am answering these. Just clicking through. All right, 1 out of 8, 12% that time. We go to complete and continue, and there is our reading passage. In this one, again, you'll notice that those vocabulary words that we focused on are bolded. And again, it tells you to use the echo reading feature here to read this with your student to build fluency. After we're done, once again, it takes us to, there we go, those comprehension check questions. So this is another opportunity for them to check their understanding. And last but not least, there it goes. 0 out of 6.
Oh
I
dear.
feel like I'm getting worse here as we go. And then the last one here has the audio recording of this reading passage being read. Again, as a lower level passage, that's, as Kathy pointed out, you won't see that for those higher level, more intermediate passages. And then it takes us back to the beginning. So I hope that helps acclimate you a little bit more to the, sorry, that looks weird because it's the back end of the administration side. I hope that that helps to acclimate you to what the reading and language libraries look like, and know that it's not meant to be intimidating, because it is meant to look just like the online training courses that you've been through. So let me get back to our PowerPoint here so I can share. Okay, so now we're going to do about 10 minutes in a breakout group. We have 2 questions for you. And I do want to say that in our experience with Zoom, we realized that when we put you into the breakout rooms, these questions disappear. So you won't have them in front of you when you go to have conversations with your colleagues in your breakout group. So the questions, if you could jot them down, or just remember, if you have a good memory, which I do not. What are the benefits, or what benefits do you see to you and your student in using the I2O language or reading library? And what might be the barriers you see to using them with your student? If you then have barriers, can you come up with any ideas to overcome those barriers? So Kathy is going to open up the breakout groups and
Yeah, and you'll see on your screen, you'll be invited to join a breakout room. Just accept the invitation. We will, again, as we said, we'll put you in there for about 10 minutes and we'll bring you back. So all you have to do is accept the invitation, and then when it's done, we will bring you back. So we're going to go ahead and create those. I'm going to do one more.
And as the slide says, if you could just make sure to identify someone, we're just going to ask for a few people to share some of the responses to the questions and suggestions they may have to work around those barriers. So if you just have someone who's prepared to share that, that would be helpful.
And you're going to have to unmute, and we hope you can turn your camera on as well. So let me go ahead and try to get folks into rooms.
Yep.
Amy, can you put us on the full screen of faces, please, so I can see who's not?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that it.
There's some folks.
That better?
Can you? No, can you get rid of your PowerPoint?
Oh, yes, sorry. Oh, because I'm screening. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah. So if your name is still on the screen, you should have received an invitation. Do you see a place to click to join the room? There's a couple people left here. If you can accept the invitation. We have Barbara, June, and Stephanie, unless they may have stepped away from their computers.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Stephanie, if you are still there, let us know. Oh, okay. You can still, Stephanie, you can still go into the breakout room. That's fine.
Yeah, just listen.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead and accept the invitation. I can put her in a room. Are you seeing the invitation, Stephanie? We can't tell because she's.
My chat disappeared.
Oh, she doesn't see the invite. I wonder if it doesn't go. If there's.
Can you try send her to a different group? Would that do anything? I don't know how this works.
Yeah, let me try that.
Maybe it'll pop back
It
up.
says not joined. Let me see.
Let's
see if that puts her in a room. Yeah, I don't think it works, unfortunately. Oh, wait, she went.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my chat disappeared. I wasn't able to see that. I just realized it popped up because there's so many more features now on Zoom.
I know.
There's a
Jeez.
lot more. Yeah, it's confusing.
Did you look? So we're done about 2:10.
Yeah, this is going a little longer than I thought. So, well, no, it's actually perfect timing given where we are. I don't think we'll have to try and extend anything is what I'm saying.
I think it's great. I think it's going really well.
I know, I actually like it. I thought I was gonna hate it, but I don't. Only because it's like, to me, it's so simple. You just click, like it makes so much sense, but I know
Yeah,
I need you to
yeah.
really walk through it. And then I'm like, I don't know, am I going too slow? But no, it feels like everybody's
It makes
probably getting it.
sense. I mean, it made a lot of sense with what you were doing, so.
Yeah. And again, like I never want to, like when I back out of I2O, sometimes it takes me to the admin screen and like I want to try to avoid any confusion of them seeing things that they're not going to actually see, but
Yeah, yeah,
really no ways around it.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Can I
it
go in
will.
the rooms or does that usually, do you think it just stifles the conversation? They feel like they're being
I
watched.
think with these questions, I think it kind of would stifle. They don't really
Yeah,
need us for
okay,
anything, so.
okay. Just want to do what I'm getting paid for, you know,
Yeah.
not just sit here looking pretty. No, I think it's going very well. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's funny. I got a message from Thomas Beatty. I think he's on the board of I2O Delaware.
Yeah.
And he was asking how much a training costs. He goes, they're thinking about not going for ale. And he wants to know how much the training costs. And
just
I
like
told him, I said, we have a couple former state, like Syracuse buys training from us.
yeah, it's
So.
just, I don't know. And I'm sad I'm not able to come to your meeting that you have
I
tomorrow.
know, I know.
Bummed, but you know what I'm thinking. So
I
like,
do know what you're thinking.
I know I don't have to really add to it necessarily, but I was like, damn it, of course. It's
I
like,
wanted to get it really, I wanted to do it quick
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm getting all sorts
Well,
of questions. So.
yeah, I was just saying it to my dad. When I try to explain it to my dad, I realize how ridiculous it sounds. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
when I talk about my farming game, when I say it out loud, I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, but like, as I say this out loud, I'm like, this just sounds
I was
ridiculous.
telling Cody about it because I said, Cody, you
Oh.
left and everything changed by the time you came in. Like, so he's like, no,
It's
no.
just a short trip, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's very frustrating to say the least, but
Mhm.
you know, I don't know what else we can do except just do everything they tell us.
I know. I would just love to not. I can't believe the rain RFPs are coming out in January.
And like the TABE and Best Plus thing alone, if I had an idea of like how much is the Best Plus going to change, like are we talking scoring? Are we just talking pictures? Like when they
I've just
say
heard
change,
updated. I don't know.
but then they said we all have to be retrained. So then I'm
Well,
like,
you have to be retrained.
yeah,
You can train
and then all
people.
the people, yeah. So it's like, or is it just they haven't done this in a long time? So they thought they'd have like a formal way to roll it out.
It does seem like a much bumpier rollout than the 9, 10 to 11, 12, but that's
Yeah.
probably because it wasn't Best Plus as well. It was just
Yeah. And I don't know with the TABE, like that's probably from what they said, it's probably all the same process. It's the test itself changed, where I think what was hard of the 9, 10 to the 11, 12 was the whole process changed, particularly
Right.
like all the timing and everything,
Remember,
where
we couldn't print answer sheets anymore, all that stuff.
there was a lot of changes there. So yeah, it's just a lot all at once. It's a lot all at once. And on top of the negative attitude that you hear with it, you know, it's like, it's not even just the changes because a lot of these I know are federal things, like they're being pushed by them. So I understand it's not them necessarily asking for them. I think they make rules on the fly, like the charging for student thing we got into at NIA's. That was a one-time thing in one program and it spilled into like the EPI conversation and the
We're
workforce.
so reactionary with
It
everything.
is, and they don't want to look wrong. So they answer so confidently with like this very direct thing. And then when we start asking questions back and forth is when they're
Now,
like,
are you going in December or did you already go?
no, December we go. Yeah.
Reach out to Anne Marie. She might want to travel with you guys. I have to go a day early because I'm visiting programs along the way. So
yeah, I'm not sure if I think Tara and I are driving together. We haven't even talked about it yet. I just made sure that we registered. That was like, let's get that out of the way and make sure that we at least registered.
Did I tell you Kelly
yeah.
Johnson took a job with the Bosies?
Yes. Who's she
She'll
working
be there. Randy.
That's right. That's right. You said Randy's her boss. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
She'll
so
be there
funny.
in December, which will be fun.
Good.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, not great for her, but good.
Yeah. She can't believe all the
All the
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the garbage that's associated.
I'm sure. And again, like, let us do stuff like this, where it's actually helping people instead of just giving them more things to do. Oh, man.
I'll send them a message in a few minutes, tell them they have a couple more
Okay.
minutes. It's 2:06 from what I see. Yeah, it is fun to have this whole group. I mean, I wish we could hear a little more from them directly, but it's kind of a big
I
group.
know, and I think that's why I don't like the online train. I just feel like I'm talking to nothing.
Thank goodness some people answered stuff. So
Oh yeah, and I don't want a ton of people, because then it's too
Yeah.
long, but
But yeah, I'll also mention that we'll send a survey and we'll try to answer their questions.
and again, I'm happy to do something else on, like, I know the print-based materials are tough. I'll speak a little bit to like making the connection between the two. That's always a stretch for us. And I just did this tutor chat on Saturday, and all the tutors are like, well, what do you do like with the workbooks and the lesson like how, and I'm like, some of them you can find like in, correlating topic.
Yeah, yeah.
Others like going to the doctor, there's going to be in a picture dictionary, there's the scene of the doctor office with all the things labeled. So there's ways to do it like that. I think our tutors use them as backup or specific skills. So like a vocabulary workbook, and then they, do some like 15 minutes of that, just to break it up a little.
I still have to decide what we're getting with that little bit of money that we have. I got a lot of suggestions. I had Diane go and put them all in like categories.
Kind of go from there. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna, I want to wait till, I might wait till June so that it's for the new year.
Right.
So if it's like, say I'm getting a subscription to something, then you guys don't have to buy it.
Right.
Like if I'm getting news for you for everybody, or news, then I probably won't actually spend it till like spring.
So
for the
one to
new
look into is the ELLII.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that.
It's incredible. It is.
Is it expensive?
No, $80 a year for the full subscription.
For one, I'll find out.
For one, yeah, and I'm not sure how it works in bulk rates and that, but actually, Kathy, they just put a component in, just like the I2O language library here, where a student and a tutor can use it online. So like we use it and we print it out, but they also have this component that they just added in the last couple months where you could sit side by side.
I observed a tutor using it when I did
we found it mainly just during the pandemic when we needed to find more online resources to send to tutors virtually. And when we saw it was $80, we're like, this is too good to be true. And it has reading material. It's just so well done that it's the way we use it on our lesson planning in getting started is we have a thing from there, a printout, like about going to the doctor.
Right.
We have the lesson plan, just like what we do here, and it walks them through how to use those documents in the lesson plan. And then Courtney has some things like pull this sound list from I2O and do minimal pairs with this sound list. So she actually kind of takes stuff from the online training from this website and kind of puts it into a lesson plan. And again, just giving the tutors more places to pull stuff, but they can't see everything in the ESL library. They can see up to a certain point. You have to have the subscription to be able to access the actual PDFs. There's so much content on there. It's unbelievable. It really is.
I did notice that. The tutor used it well when I was watching.
Yeah, and it's very good vetted stuff. And then they have like reading passages with packets of activities on all different famous people. I mean, there's just so much on there. It really has changed our use of the published printed materials because we use more of that now than the workbooks. Because people can write on them, which they always couldn't do with those workbooks. So
all right, I'll give it one more minute, then I'll close the rooms. It'll be 2:11. Couple people left, so
okay.
I think it still gives them one more minute, even if I close the rooms. Yeah.
Oh, right. It gives like a countdown.
They're coming back.
Oh boy.
I think you're going to have to mute again coming in. It's so if you could just go ahead and mute as you land back in the main session. Thank you. We got so many people. We get feedback and all of that. So if you could go ahead and mute your microphone. And room 2 is not leaving. They're staying in their room. Room 4 is kind of stuck in there too. Well, I'll be back in a few seconds. Again, if you're just popping back in, you're gonna have to mute again your microphones if you would. We appreciate it.
If I may ask, are you just going to go around to the groups and ask for their responses to these?
Yeah,
that how
Amy's
it
gonna
works?
try to get some feedback,
Okay.
and then we'll collect what we can. Yep.
It's all good, thanks.
And then if you, Amy, you're gonna tell them they
Mm-hmm.
could put stuff in the chat too if they want to.
Yep,
We'll
absolutely.
save the chat.
So, yeah, we were interested to hear, I purposefully didn't come around to the groups because I know sometimes when we pop in, it just makes people wonder if they're saying the right things. So it's easier to just allow you to talk amongst yourselves. But I'm curious to know, would anybody be willing to share the benefits that you see? Any of the people who kind of are speaking for the group, what were some of the benefits to using the I2O resources, the reading and the language library? If anybody would be willing to share, you can
jump in.
unmute yourself.
Great, and can
I
you
would-
introduce yourself? We don't see your name. We see admin for your name.
Nancy Galusha.
Thanks, Nancy.
And I'm using a laptop because I have such an old dinosaur computer. It does not have a camera or anything. So I'm here in Seneca County. We had a great conversation in our group. And some of the benefits that we talked about were that the lessons keep you organized and efficient. It makes good use of your time. It helps you cut down on, things that just aren't that important. It helps you figure out where to start and what order to go in your lessons. And the lessons are high interest stories, but at a reading level that's appropriate for our learners. Those were some of the things we talked about. And the word progression was used, and I thought that was really important. It shows a nice flow of the lesson, which if you're not a former teacher or a teacher, you might not have had experience in lesson planning.
Very good. Thank you,
Great
Nancy.
feedback.
Anybody else like to
And you'll
share?
have to unmute to share. And we're seeing a few things in the chat too.
Our group, we spoke about that it was really nice that the lesson was contextualized. So if a student had, say, the downfall is if someone can't read, of course. So just to get, some conversation going, the great thing was that they could contextualize the reading. And then if they had no idea, because, really that was maybe a little bit hard for someone who didn't have a credit card or, was brand new to English. So you could find a picture that they could relate to. I mean, pictures are so wonderful.
Yeah.
And then roll from there. Find
Right.
words. If they didn't, if it just began with some words that they need, what's that word mean? And then they would have some interest and they would want to, intrinsic motivation. They'd want to learn the words. So you would get them, you could grab them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share benefits of using this curriculum?
I can share from our group, similar to what Nancy shared. Reading the stories together always provides good opportunities for discussion. Using it would save a lot of time in trying to plan your own lessons. And it follows the strategies that tutors take in their original training. It gives the learner a chance to develop their digital literacy skills. The pictures are great and it gets them used to, like Kathy was saying, gets them used to it for when they have to take their best plus again. And very good topics to choose from.
Great. Thank you, Donna. We have time for one more. If anyone out of the other groups want to share the benefits, and then we'll go to the next question.
Well, we talked about how it was systematic and thorough. It provides a curriculum and a starting point for less experienced teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think once a tutor becomes more accustomed to this process, And just using these materials and the teaching guide with all the activities built in, it just becomes second nature after doing it so many times over and over. I'm also really big on building predictability for the students by using very similar activities over and over and over. It's not belaboring it because you're using different reading passages and material each time. But when a student can say, oh, I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me, what do I know about this topic? When a student can say that, it gives them a feeling of success. And even though it may seem like, oh, we're doing another KWL again over and over and over, them having the ability to say, I know what we're doing and I know what you're going to ask me to do is one of the things that's going to keep them coming back. They're not going to see improvement in learning to read in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions. It takes a lot of time, as you all know that. The same is true for English. But if they can begin seeing successes just in the way of understanding what's being asked of them and what they need to do and what that expectation is, I feel that very strongly that that's going to keep them coming back and keep them coming to your lessons on a regular basis. Okay, for the second question, I'd like to go in the same direction. If you could unmute yourself, I'm curious to know what are some of the barriers that you see to using this? Because we are very well aware there are barriers there. And then we want to know what your workaround could possibly be, or what are some ways to overcome those. If you don't have a way to overcome it, that's fine. You can still share the barrier.
We still want to hear it. Yeah, definitely. We're always hoping to improve and to meet your needs.
Yep.
Well, we would definitely like to keep the ability to be able to print out these lessons because it's not always desired or feasible to have access to the technology. Some volunteers don't want to work with the technology, and some places just don't have the bandwidth or the Wi-Fi or whatever. So we do still sometimes need to be able to print out whatever resources.
And Amy, your office does that by tell the process.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily super easy because again, it wasn't built for that, but obviously the teaching guides can be printed from that link at the bottom of the teaching guides. That's a pretty easy one. But what we do is we'll cut and paste the text from the article and we'll print it out on a piece of paper. And then again,
vocabulary questions.
Yeah, and we'll do the same with the vocabulary questions, and we'll just essentially retype them into a worksheet. So it's a way to still use the materials. But I agree, some of our tutors don't have access to technology or are uncomfortable with it, or are in a setting where they can't rely on it sometimes, particularly the internet, not even the computer itself, but the internet itself. So I think that that's one possible workaround. Again, the lesson plans are easy to print. It's the other things that you'd have to kind of do the work for, but it is possible.
And Heather, then I see in the chat the video speed, isn't it? Do you mean the audio speed?
So we were talking about the video components to these.
There aren't any videos in the libraries.
Right, just the training. Just the training should have the videos.
I don't know if that lady it was a conversation between 2 people in our group. We're talking about a video that relates in the module, like I guess one that the tutor
in the training modules
watches. But how like that is not like there's no videos that you could share with a student and have a student watch a video. So there's like no video component.
Somebody had a great comment about that, and I think that's a really good idea, something to look into for sure.
Overall, I see there's a lack of low level material. Like the first story that was brought up was supposedly level 1, but we're jumping right into words like minimum, balance, credit score, and we're not like on phonics or word families or any of the places where our basic reading students are usually starting, and that's with understanding the alphabet, understanding decoding skills. How do you break down a word like that? This is really for somebody who's like much more advanced than where we're starting at with our students in both the basic reading and the language learning.
So I'll chime in just for a second that we do, when we look at the overall makeup of our students across the state, it is hitting where most of our students are. But Amy, I'll let you go ahead and
yeah, so the tutors in my program that have students at that level, Heatherlyn, are doing a little bit more additional work, creating other activities that go along with it that may focus a little bit more on the sounding out of words.
Yeah.
Also, you know, my work in this field over the years has really moved me away from spending a lot of time on developing some of those very basic phonics skills. We tend to go more of a memorization of word recognition with a lot of those high frequency words that you see most often in these lower level reading passages. And then what we will often default to, if the passage is too much for the student to handle on their own, is so I'll just to acknowledge like the vocabulary specifically. I think that most of our students, at least those that were born in the United States, of course the second language learners is a different category in itself, but they know what credit is. They know what a lender is in its basic components. So some of those vocabulary
That was the basic reading one.
Yes, and I'm just kind of speaking more globally, but in a verbal
It
sense,
would have been more appropriate for ESL in a way. Yeah.
I think there is an ESL one about
credit.
one about credit too. I can't
Probably,
remember.
yeah, it's a common
Yeah,
topic.
so typically
Yeah.
though, just to, because we don't have a lot of time left, but my tutors will read to the students in some cases. And that's a way to build listening skills for the English language learners, but also develop the comprehension in a listening way for those that can't read independently. And then the echo reading and the choral reading, and employing a variety of reading strategies to first have the student read after you. So then they're not basing it on their own pronunciation of the words or sounding out, and then doing it as a choral reading where we'd read together and then have them try to read it more independently. So a lot of the times we recommend our tutors, they're going to read that passage 5-6 times. They're going to do it a variety of ways, but the intention is that at the end, perhaps the student will be a little bit more able to read it independently for the purpose of using what's in front of them. And then again, I do agree. I think there needs to be some even lower level ones that could be supportive for those much lower level students. But that's been my workaround, is just defaulting to reading it aloud and having them focus on the listening component. Certainly not a catch-all for everything though.
Yeah, I understand. Our main focus is level 1 and 2 students.
Great.
But also from that picture, this is what we were talking about. You can go everywhere just from the picture with a very beginning student. Again, let them come up with the vocabulary. What do I want to learn, and what do you know about credit, and have you ever used credit, and draw a picture. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to develop literacy.
Sure.
Yeah.
What other barriers? Does anyone else have any barriers that they'd like
There's
to
something in the
mention?
chat, Amy, about
sure.
group activities, and yeah, it would be difficult to use one tablet if you're working with a group. We do have some tutors who have a laptop with more than one student, or even a desktop where they in the office where the office has access to a room with computers. But yeah, I can see a tablet would be hard to pass around for a group. Mary Jane? You have to unmute, my dear. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention one thing because I know you're short on time. The other thing that was mentioned in our group was possibly introducing a writing component to reinforce what was being read, or even just being read to the learner, to make sure that they not only recognize the sounds of the words, but could recreate those words if they had to on a page.
Thanks, Mary Jane. We're very excited. We have 2 writing tutor training modules in the works right now that will be added to the I2O suite of trainings. One is for beginning level, working with learners at a lower level in writing, and the other is leading all the way up to prep for GED. So I think we'll find ways to integrate the training that we're going to be offering in the writing with the libraries as well, and have writing activities that go along with the work.
Okay. So just being aware of time, we have 5 minutes left. So I do want to make sure we get to questions, because I think some of the barriers we might have discussed might lead to questions. So I am going to just jump back to the PowerPoint.
And I will say, we're going to be sending out a survey after this. We're going to send something out, and if you have things that we didn't address or didn't speak to, we would love to hear any other barriers, any other ways of working around these barriers in the survey that we send out via email. We also are going to ask what you would like to see next. What are these kinds of webinars helpful to you as a tutoring group and as a group of folks who support tutors? Maybe with some suggestions for additional topics. So Amy, I'll go ahead and turn it back over.
Yeah, so just a couple kind of ending points. You know, I really see a benefit, particularly for those new tutors out there, to get a sense of how to lesson plan. I think for some of my tutors that have been doing this for even 6-12 months, it's so much easier once they get going. But those first couple of months are often what's the most difficult and the most uncomfortable. This defaults to giving you something, you know, to get started with. And again, then to begin kind of the training around how to create lessons. That's a very overwhelming topic and something I've struggled to teach to tutors, and I've gone back and forth over the years. I find that having them work with solid lesson plan templates, which is essentially what these teaching guides offer, is a great way to begin that building that competency among the tutors. Once the online curriculum is complete, because there isn't, you know, it's not very ongoing, like it's not, there's not 100 stories for each level. There are opportunities though to find other reading material and use the same lesson plans. Again, the activities can remain the same. What changes is what you're reading, the questions you're asking for comprehension, and the vocabulary that you're focusing on. But being able to switch out the material and still use the templates of the lesson plans or teaching guides as a structure is a great way to kind of take this to the next level once you've exhausted any of the curriculum that's here and being offered. Keeping those activities consistent, changing the content, as I mentioned earlier, and then always making notes of errors. I think one of the hardest things for tutoring is that you see so many opportunities for challenges that your student needs help with. And the one thing I know about teaching is if you stop every time to try to fix that one error you're seeing, you're never going to get through the lesson plan that you created or the work that you have to do. So making note of those, obviously fixing them for the purpose of the lesson you're in, but making note for future lessons, future skills to work on is a great way of trying to handle that, because again, you can't fix it all in a few hours a week. I do just have some slides towards the end here because I often have tutors and programs asking in the online training workshops what materials are available. There's a lot of print-based materials out there, and there are ways to kind of bring them back to some of the teaching guides. So for the English language learning population, we use a lot of picture dictionaries, Heather Lynn, specifically for those very low-level students that really need the visuals and the vocabulary alone. So the Oxford Picture Dictionary with its accompanying workbooks have been really effective for that. They happen to be pretty pricey as far as workbooks go, but those picture dictionaries are really outstanding. Sorry, my cat's starting to get on my keyboard here. Some other ones that I've used over the years that we refer to tutors are Word by Word Basic. Those are two other picture dictionaries that are through, I think Pearson VUE publishes them. Step Forward, Life Prints, and English No Problem, as well as Side by Side, are typically workbooks that focus on comprehensive English and things of that nature. We have our basic literacy workbook specific for reading and instruction. I'm sure many of these look familiar to you. And then these are just my catch-all category of other workbooks that we might have available for tutors. They may use them for just very specific skills like grammar or vocabulary, but we do have print-based materials available to offset the online materials and paper-based lesson planning that our tutors are doing.
And as I put in the chat, we'll send everybody a copy of the PowerPoint, so you'll have all these recommended resources in the slides.
So now we want to hear questions. Again, there's not a lot of time left. If you do have to leave at 2:30, we're certainly not kicking you out of here right now. But if you have questions, I'd love to hear them. So if you do have any, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Barbara. It was your idea to get this together, so
And of course, in the survey, perhaps we can have a place for questions too, Kathy, of
for sure. Yeah.
if there
We
are
want
things
this
that
to
you
be,
just, if you just don't want to get into it right now, that's fine. I know sometimes after an hour and a half of listening, you need a little bit of a break. Or if things come to mind later, I'm more than happy to answer questions if you don't have them now, but want to submit them later.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include Amy's contact information as well.
Okay, so if no one has any questions, we have a final poll for you that Kathy is going to put up there. And it's the same question as what we led with earlier this afternoon. But now, now, how much do you know about the I2O libraries and resources available? So if you could take a moment, this is your exit poll, your exit slip, so that you can get out of class.
Looks like we've moved the needle a little bit.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, it looks like it's we've done our job of getting you more information. There are always going to be more questions, and we understand that. As Kathy said, for us, being able to add more to this, if there are more things that you'd like to hear, more things you'd like to learn about, we'd be happy to provide that. We just need to know from you all what would be most helpful for you or your tutors if you are a program staff member. So it looks like 63% said that they're much more comfortable now with the accessing and using this. 33% said they're more comfortable but could still use some additional help. And then 4%, just one, still not sure, will need more guidance. Again, if you have more specific questions, we'd be happy to answer them on an individual level. So please feel free to reach out to us. And Kathy will be sending along the PowerPoint and information.
Yeah, and if you want a recording, so Mary Jane, just email me if you want a copy of the recording. We won't send it to everybody, but if you'd like a copy. And then Jane Monaghan is asking about the link for I2O. Kitty, can you perhaps get in touch? Thank you very much, and help her out with that. See if there's any more questions in the chat. I don't think so. So I think we're good. Again, you'll be hearing from us. It might be after the holiday. We have a lot going on before everybody takes a little bit of a break. But then we will certainly be hoping to hear from you about more ways that we can really work to meet your needs and help you with the work you do, the very important and wonderful work you do with the adults in your communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys. You have to stop sharing. There we go.